So you're thinking about moving to St. George, Utah, or maybe you're just thinking about, you know, I want to buy a property in St. George, Utah. Maybe you're not even going to live here, or maybe you'll live here as a second home. But you're wondering, is a condo a good idea? Because that's a totally different purchase than a single family home. So what we're going to talk about in this video is, you know, what are the pros and cons of condos? What are some, you know, interesting stories that Sean's had over his career? Some pretty funny ones about what it is, what it's like purchasing a condo. So that's what we're going to do in this video, so stay tuned. And then just as we are talking this video, there might be some points that are confusing to you, or maybe you might feel like, you know, you just want to talk to somebody about it. And if that's the case, don't forget to reach out to us, because Sean and I, we actually are licensed real estate agents here in the state of Utah. We're with Keller Williams St. George. And also, don't forget to subscribe. So let's talk a little bit about what was our definition of a condo. So how are you describing a condo?
So a condo, okay, so condo and townhome are kind of used interchangeably. To an extent, because they are attached structures. Like a single family residence, that is obviously, you know, you don't have any shared walls, you tend to have your own lot line and that kind of thing, so that's like a single family residence. Condo, you're part of like a multi-family kind of setup where you more or less share, as far as like you have a stake in the land, like you have a percentage based off of how many units there are there. So like let's say there's 10 units in their condominium complex, you have 1/10 the home ownership of that general complex, right? But you do have, you do own your dwelling, basically. So condo, like a lot of people think of condo as basically being, you know, like almost like what you think of an apartment. So you have maybe someone above or below you, to the left or right of you, that kind of thing. A townhome people think of as basically you have like you and above, like so there's like, you know, like let's say you're 1-story or 2-story, but there's no one above or below you, but you may have neighbors to the left or right of you.
That are attached.
Yes.
So let's talk about, let's be real, the main reason that most people choose a condo versus a home, and what is that?
Price. You know, let's be real, like, you know, most people would prefer a single family residence, but of course that comes at a cost. With a condominium, you have, you know, there's, you know, it tends to be way cheaper to either get in initially, or maybe you're in a more desirable, more expensive area, and so obviously getting a house is going to be a lot more expensive than buying a condominium / townhome. And obviously, you know, what people look at, let's say for a condominium or townhome, maybe it could be a second home kind of situation where they don't want to have a huge budget to buy, you know, into the area, or maybe they're, you know, they were renting and they want to get, you know, just get into home ownership. They want to get that first property. So maybe a single family residence might be a little bit too high of a price point, where a condominium or townhome actually, you know, it gets it's a lot easier point of entry.
So then let's talk about where can you find condos and townhomes all over St. George.
Like you said, all over St. George. They're kind of sprinkled all over the place, really. There's not really a spot, like a hub of just condominiums or townhomes. Even when people tend to think of, you know, downtown areas as having this cluster of condominiums or townhomes, I wouldn't say there's necessarily a cluster. There are definitely, you could find them there, but you know, you're definitely finding plenty of single family residences as well. So I would just say, kind of depending on where you're looking at, you know, they're kind of all over the place, fortunately. Yeah.
Okay, so obviously, you know, one of the main reasons people get in is because of price, and then let's talk about some of the drawbacks of condos. And Sean has some pretty hilarious stories. I mean, I would say one of the biggest drawbacks of a condo is you're stacked on top of each other and you have lots more neighbors, right? So you have much more opportunity for that crazy neighbor, right?
Well, we'll just say that everyone's got their little quirks.
Yes.
And, you know, again, I'm not going to throw stones because I've got my quirks too.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you share walls, walls, floors, ceilings, whatever that might be, you are much closer to where everyone else is. So if someone is turning on their garbage disposal, maybe you might hear that. Again, maybe. Like I have lived in a condo and townhome. I haven't really picked it up, but some people are very sensitive. So depending on, you gotta know who you are, right? So if you're one of those people that like has a really heightened sense of smell or heightened sense of hearing.
Here, let's talk about the funny story of the smell. Okay, so let's talk a little bit, just to liven up the video, let's talk about a little bit of experiences that we've had. So we once had a client, she was a nice lady, you know, but just a little kooky, and I remember she was getting really, really angry that the woman above her in the balcony would go outside and paint watercolors because she smelled it, and she just could not handle the smell, right? So that's just an example of like...
Yeah, it's just one of those things where I guess she had this heightened sense of smell and just couldn't get past it. So it's one of those things where...
Well, and then another one. They keep coming to me. And then, so he has a client who owns a condo, and her son is actually living in there right now, and the neighbor below him, literally he'll take like a step, and then she'll take the broom and hit the ceiling.
Yes. So there is that where some people have this really heightened, and hearing as well. So I sold a condo, you know, and you know, one of the disclosures, like questions, is like, you know, is there any like noise or nuisances, right? And to this current owner, wasn't anything, you know, nothing really noticed. And I had open houses there, so I was kind of familiar with the condo, and nothing really came up as something I was like, wow, that's a crazy sound or whatever. But the agent that, you know, represented the buyer purchasing the property, he calls me, he's going, oh my gosh, you know, okay, the buyer's having a really hard time here because she's hearing the air conditioner. She says it sounds like a helicopter is landing on the roof. And I'm going, what? I'm like, I had open houses there. I mean, I'm sure there's like, nothing really sounded like there was something that was particularly like, you know, that you would stop, you know, to do, like stop what you're doing, going, I can't deal with this. So this lady, she literally had to sell the place because she could not handle it. And then she was even complaining that the person, not even directly below her, this was a 3-story community, the person below that person turned on their garbage disposal, and she was having a problem with that. So you're going, okay, I don't know what to tell you. You just have a really heightened sense of hearing or some sense. And for you to have a shared, like anything with anybody is really not a good idea. And so, you know, so that's why you gotta know who you are. Be aware that, you know, having a condo, you may have neighbors that might be a little bit unreasonable. Like actually, as a matter of fact, we had this come up in our own situation. So we lived in a condo.
Yeah, our first property ever.
Yeah, so we had a condo, and basically, you know, Courtney was just practicing for triathlons, and so she had like a bike, you know, stationary bike setup, and basically she was riding it, and then, you know, didn't think anything of it, and apparently one day we like go to our door, and there's a notice from the association saying that we were a noise nuisance.
Noise violation.
Yeah, noise violation, and apparently that writing was bothering the downstairs neighbor. Now they could have just told us that we actually didn't know. But at the same time, so we got a noise nuisance thing. So okay, so we stopped doing it. But it's just one of the things where, again, you have to be much more mindful of your neighbors. Not to say that in a single family residence you won't have neighbors that could potentially be something of an issue. It's just that obviously when you're sharing walls, especially, it could be much more heightened.
But then let's talk about how neighbors can be a pro, especially if this is a second home of yours, or maybe, for example, my best friend, she travels a lot, so for her, she actually likes having a condo because then she knows that her neighbors, who she likes, can, you know, watch over the property while she's gone.
Yes, exactly. So as much as we talked about those neighbors, like being, you can have issues with them, they could be a massive benefit too, because now you have another set of eyes. It behooves them too to make sure that the place is actually not broken into or whatever, if that's a concern. So obviously it's much less likely, you know, like back in Southern California, when I in certain areas, if I got a listing of a vacant house, it was going to be broken into by someone that needed a roof over their head. I mean, it was almost a foregone conclusion that in this area it was going to happen. And the area was actually a pretty nice area, but the moment that there was a for sale sign and it was vacant, it was game on. And you're going, oh my God. But I had never had that issue in that same area with any condos or townhomes, because I think that it's just a little too, you know, everyone's a little too close together. So that's where it is kind of, and again, not saying I had any issues like that in the area. I'm just saying,
not in St. George. This was back in California.
Southern California. So that just kind of putting it out there. I'm just saying that, like, as an extreme example, when there's a vacant home, there's more likelihood of someone trying to squat or something like that. Whereas when it's a condo or townhome, it's a lot less likely because there's neighbors that are right there.
And just as an aside here, I mean, if you are seriously considering a condo, one area that I particularly really like, and there's a lot of new condos that are being built there, is Desert Color. So that's like, so explain, what is that?
It's this huge community. It's almost, you know, when it's like a 20-year plan, when it's all built out, assuming it's built out as it's planned out in these phases, it will possibly have like a third of St. George's population right in this
What is it,
development.
like 11,000 units,
Yeah,
right?
so like you're talking about like possibly what, 40,000 people? Like
yeah.
possibly. I mean, it's just a massive, massive development.
Yeah.
And within it's sprinkled with, you know, nightly rentals, you have condos, you have houses, detached houses. So you have like a bunch of different things going on in there.
Yeah, and they have great amenities.
Yes, like the lagoon thing is like insane. They're gonna have a lot more, like, and that's just one of several that are planned, as well as, you know, obviously all your sport courts and pickleball and all this other stuff that, you know, is planned. So it's kind of an amazing area. So yeah, if you're interested in a condo, that is certainly a spot. And actually, speaking of that, when we're talking about nightly rentals, this is another benefit of, I'd say, some condos, right? Like I would say that you see a higher likelihood of nightly rentals in condominium developments.
So let's backtrack, because
let's do it.
Some people might not know. So here in St. George, people, you know, they think, oh, I want a property in St. George, and then when I'm not there, I'll just Airbnb it out, right?
Yes.
Well, it's not quite that easy, because there's a lot of restrictions on Airbnb.
Yeah.
So, how Sean was saying, there are certain communities or certain areas that are zoned for Airbnb, and it, as he was saying, it is more likely if it is a condo or a townhome, right? There are some communities where it's all, you know, done for you, and Desert Color is one of them, where there are some residences that are zoned for nightly rentals.
Yeah, and in some of these nightly rental places, like, you know, for instance, in Desert Color, like on the lagoon, this is like their version of oceanfront. Huge, mega huge houses, like, I don't know how many bedrooms, like 16 bedrooms. It's like it can hold 60 people.
Yeah, it can hold 60 people.
So yeah, so like these houses.
Again, this is not a condo. This
is a house, I guess, if you want to call it a house.
Yeah.
It's not really designed to be a normal house that you live in.
It's more for when big events come in, like the Iron Man and that kind of stuff.
To give you an idea, like this house, I think when we were talking to the representative, they said that this house was about $5 million.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, again, so not to say that that's kind of on the more extreme end. So you do, like, in these like these areas that are zoned for nightly rentals, I would say the vast majority are like townhomes / condos, and then you do have some single family residences, but again, they're gonna really cost you also. And
then you should know too that if it is zoned for nightly rental, the price is gonna go up, right? I mean, because people want that, right?
Of course, yeah, for sure. And that definitely comes with the territory.
So now let's talk about fees associated with condos, because obviously it's not just your mortgage, and you almost for certainly will be in an HOA, and not to say that you can't be in an HOA in a house, but it tends to cost more, right?
Exactly. So yeah, a lot of St. George, not all of it, but a lot of St. George does have, like, whether it's a townhome, a condo, or a single family residence, are in an HOA. We own a property, you know, a house that's in an HOA. But that's pretty normal. Again, not that there's others that aren't in an HOA, but tends to be. Now with condos and townhomes, you're almost certainly going to be in an HOA, and they are going to almost certainly going to be significantly higher. And the reason being, it actually makes sense. Some people don't like it, of course, because no one likes to pay higher fees, but there are some pros that come with it, right? So like with a house, like a detached house, you're responsible for the structure. Yeah. So like your roof, your walls, all that, you know, you're responsible for it. The HOA may or may not even cover, let's say, the front yard, like, you know, for grooming and all that stuff, and then you may have some amenities and some streets to maintain. That's kind of like the extent of your HOAs for a single family residence. That's why they're pretty low, because there's really not much to cover. Yeah. Now once you have a townhome or a condo, basically what you're dealing with here is that this HOA tends to be responsible for the roof, for the exterior of the property, for the structure, for like maintaining the grounds, for the amenities. So you have a lot more responsibility for the HOA, and so that's why you have to actually pay higher dues. So, and you know, which on one hand is nice, because now they're kind of, it's someone else's, you know, it's not all on you, because replacing a roof could be tens of thousands of dollars.
Or even sometimes like a leak, depending on where the leak is, it could be the association's responsibility.
And that could be thousands of dollars. So it could be, you know, you have these big fees. So it is, you know, from that point, it's nice if you don't have to front all that yourself, and it's just kind of covered in your HOA dues. Having said that, sometimes these HOAs, okay, you know, let's be real, they kind of tend to increase over time.
Yeah, the dues.
There's more maintenance, because as these structures get older, there's more that's necessary to maintain them. So that's kind of getting that out of the way. Secondly, is that you may, depending on if the HOA needs to do some like significant work, like changing all the fences or repaving all the, you know, if they don't have it in their reserves, they may need to do a special assessment. Yeah. Where that is, you know, where you're paying, you know, again, it could be a few $100s, it could be a few $1,000s, it could be tens of thousands of dollars depending. Yeah. And that's where you're, you know, obviously having to pay, you know, help chip in as a community to take care of these big, possibly multi-million-dollar projects, again, depending on how big the community is.
Yeah, I kind of look at a special assessment as like, let's say you need to replace your roof. Well, if it's your own house, you can decide and you can live with a bad roof if you want to.
Yeah, I want a leaky roof.
Yeah, but you can do that, right? I mean, if you don't have the money, you can do it. Whereas like in a condo, if they do a special assessment, it doesn't matter if you want it or not, like you have to pay it.
Yeah, so that's just something to be aware of, that, you know, you can, actually my uncle, like they actually had a situation where the association wanted to change all, you know, these are like 3,000 square foot, like, you know, they're almost a house. I mean, you know, they do share a wall though, but basically, so this is like a pretty big community, and the association wanted to tear out all the like balconies and redo them. And so they just threw on a special assessment, I think of $25,000 for each unit. My uncle was totally fine with whatever he had going, but again, at the end of the day, he was overruled and they had to put up the money.
So then let's talk about some of the amenities associated with condos. Of course, this is kind of as a little bit, because obviously in St. George, there's so many homes that are in HOAs as well that you get a lot of the same like amenities. But what are some amenities that you would typically get with a condo?
So if it's gated, so obviously you have like so you can think about like it's being gated, so it's included. So you have the gate, the fencing, the roads if it's gated to be maintained. But then on top of that, you may have pools, maybe tennis courts, maybe pickleball courts, maybe some spas. Like, I would say that those are your general amenities that you tend to find in these kind of associations.
Or like a gym, or like a clubhouse. Like
depending on how ritzy. I mean, depending on how new and how ritzy you're getting, because a lot of them I would say don't have that. But again, there are some that do certainly offer like those like really full, like, you know, 5-star resort kind of touches.
Well, I guess, you know, we were talking about Desert Color. I mean, those amenities, that's what it's known for, is the amenities, right? So if you buy a condo in there, then...
Or a house, though.
Or a house.
See, that's in that one. You get that, as a house, you actually get those amenities, too.
Yeah. So then let's talk about, what if you want to do like a major addition or a major repair to your condo or townhome? Like, I want to add an extra
story, that's where it gets tricky. So, like, you know, when you have a house, but even if you have a house with an association, I can't tell you that it's, you know, you have carte blanche to do whatever you want.
Have you seen Arrested Development?
That's it.
I don't know. We'll see if we can find that clip with Lucille basically moving her condo into her neighbor's condo illegally. So
there you go.
If that's a veiled criticism about me, I won't hear it and I won't respond to it.
So other than that scenario, like, you know, even with houses that are in associations, you know, you don't have carte blanche to do whatever you want to do. You have to get that approved. However, it's far easier to do that with a house than, let's say, with a townhome or condo. With a condo, I don't know how you do an addition.
Yeah.
And on top of that, like, you know, you have to be very careful about how, like, what walls you're shifting, whatever, because if you're, again, a lot of they're not going to allow it, you know, because they don't want to compromise the entire structure of the entire development because you wanted to move a wall over. So you got to be real careful when it comes to these big jobs. Like, you know, and realistically, if you're wanting something you fully customize, the condo and townhouse probably not for you, because that's just not really in the cards. But, you know, with houses, you definitely have a lot more options.
Okay, and let's talk about the last little bits about a condo or a townhome. You could have issues with parking, and then depending on it, although most of them in St. George, you probably don't need to worry about this, but washer dryer hookups as well.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things to be mindful of, that when you're looking at a condo or a townhome, like, you want to obviously understand, okay, do I have garage spaces, or is it a carport, or is it just street parking? You know, what's that parking situation looking like? And if I have guests, how does that work? Because that also applies to homes too. Because, like, for instance, you know, there's certain communities where they don't want you having anyone parking on the street at night. You know, like, late at, like, overnight, basically. So, but you do have your driveway. Again, obviously, it's going to tend to be more flexible with a house. But just to let you know, with a condo or townhome, you just got to be mindful of it. So those, you know, those are important. You got to reach out to us so we can kind of obviously help you narrow your search to kind of make more sense for you. And on top of that, as far as washer hookups, again, I don't know how necessarily prevalent it is, but with homes, obviously it's understood that you have washer dryer hookups built in. With condos and stuff, it may or may not be, and most likely it will be. But again, it's one thing you may be mindful of is, okay, where's the laundry room, or where's the laundry hookups? Because again, unless you're not really, if that, you know, that's not that important to you, that's, you know, there's certainly several laundromats in the area, but a lot of people like the convenience of it being in their own home.
So that's it, that's our video. And remember, if there's anything that was confusing to you, or if you're just raring to go and you want to come out here and move to St. George and purchase a condo or a house, don't forget to reach out to us. I'm Courtney Dezad, this is Sean Dezad, and we're with Keller Williams.